Hi, Ed.
Hello, Guy. Thank you for having me here.
It is so nice to have you on this video. We're here to review your book you recently published a few days and weeks ago, so I'm very excited. But for those of you who don't know Ed Adams, maybe you can introduce yourself a little bit, but more importantly, we have done actually a video, which is also in the show notes, where we talk through Ed's career, amazing career, which mimics essentially the history of application security at large. And you'll benefit greatly from having a look at that. So again, in the show notes. But maybe to get us started, you can give just a brief introduction to yourself before we dive into the book review.
I will. Thank you. So, I am the president and CEO of a company called Security Innovation. And Security Innovation focuses on application security or software security. And basically, there's only two things that the company does. One, we conduct security testing on software-based systems to find security vulnerabilities and help our customers remediate or fix those problems. And then the second is we have a training platform that shows software teams how to integrate security into their product lifecycle, whether they're building software, operating software, or in the case of information security teams, defending software. That's what the company does as a whole. And I also spend a fair amount of time working with a nonprofit organization called cybersecurity, which is dedicated toward helping improve the lives of women and other underrepresented minority demographics in cybersecurity. And then in my spare time, I do things like write this book.
Super. I should say, I would add, and you have been very modest, but I think you are one of the pioneers and in application security globally, and of course in the US. Maybe many people would know you for that and because of the testing, but I would not underestimate the training part. I think you trained in the software development side or in the security side of software development. You trained an incredible 3 million people. That is
That's
a
right.
big number. I think you are probably the only one who got in touch with most of the people we talk about in this book, at least on the application security side. So we can say they will certainly appreciate. I'll show the book. Yeah, for those, it's called "See Yourself in Cyber." And today we're going to a little bit look into what this book is all about and the background story, the background stories, and the trends it indicates. So the first question obviously is, what inspired you to write this book?
Well, I inspired the book mainly to help solve two recurring problems, but there was also an undercurrent that I wanted to expose, or a myth rather, I wanted to disband. And the myth is that cybersecurity is equivalent to hacking. And a lot of people, when they think about cybersecurity, they think about someone with a dark hoodie living in a basement with no windows and Coca-Cola cans and all over the floors. But that's not what cybersecurity is. And I saw two problems in the industry that I wanted to address. First, there were many people, especially younger people, that are trying to break into the field. They're trying to find a job, and sometimes they struggle even getting an interview. Of course, these folks hear, oh, there are so many cybersecurity jobs open, cybersecurity industry pays very well, and they want to get into it, but they're having trouble. So I wanted to help them. But then I also wanted to help companies who are chronically complaining that they can't find good cybersecurity talent or they can't retain good talent. And many folks that are watching your show and consuming your content have heard the estimates of how many unfilled cybersecurity jobs there are globally. And yet, with so many eager people who want those jobs, where is that disconnect? Something was missing. And mainly, this is a problem of our own making in the cybersecurity industry. Because a lot of companies, they say that they want entry-level talent, for example, but they will write a job description that requires previous experience, or it requires some industry certification that needs 5 years of experience to even sit for the exam. So there's something that's missing. Entry level means no experience. And I tackle this problem from both angles in this book. giving candidates a useful framework to understand the many, many cybersecurity jobs available and give them tips about how to build their experience and skills even without having a paying job. I also then challenge those hiring managers and human resource managers with a bit of a reality check. And I ask them to use existing tools like the NICE framework, which is from NIST in the US, the National Institute of Standards and Technology, and they created this framework from NICE, which is the National Initiative for Cybersecurity Education. But the NICE framework specifies the knowledge, skills, abilities, and tasks for many jobs in cybersecurity. So if you use that framework, you can have at least a consistent description of what you're looking for, and it also signals to the candidate exactly what they need to qualify for the job. So if we're going to solve this problem, we have to work it from both ends.
Super. I'm teaching a class to graduates, which are 20 to 23 year old in cybersecurity, and how to do their first job search. I said no experience, cannot show much, but we one of the first things we do is we look at the job offers, yeah, and they are not great. There's those who have 3 pages
Not
of
great.
explanation that they need. Maybe you're a CISO and even beyond, or they are so general that you have no idea what they want from you. So I think your book will serve a great purpose to actually mature in principle the recruitment of cybersecurity talent or resources at large.
Exactly, Guy. Exactly. And let me give you one example that I talk about in the book, but I see this in industry all the time. I see, for example, a company posts a job for a SOC 1 analyst, Security Operations Center Level 1, entry level analyst. And as part of the requirements, they want to have a CISSP certification. Well, that's just ridiculous because you need 5 years experience to sit for the CISSP exam. So how can anyone going for an entry level job have a CISSP certification? It doesn't make sense. So this company really is looking for not entry level, but someone with experience. So they should either change their job description and reset their expectations, or they should not hire entry level and pay up for what those qualifications are going to entail. So that is the paradox that I see happening over and over again in our industry.
Totally agree. So, taking that beyond this specific topic, who is your audience of your book? You already outlined, I guess, part of them. Are there other people you think will benefit from reading the book?
Absolutely. So, hiring managers, you definitely are a target, as are people that are looking for these good paying jobs in cybersecurity. But also, I wanted to call out that there are a lot of non cyber fields that can be improved and jobs that can be improved by learning basic security skills. So I really want people to understand how vast and varied and fascinating our industry is. But also for those who are in the role of IT or development or operations or networking, they can improve themselves, their jobs, and their companies by learning basic security skills that help improve their job. And one of the things that you and I discussed when we were talking my background and biography is that I got into security through the angle of software quality, where people were talking about functionality and performance and reliability, but no one was talking about security. Well, if you're a software developer or an IT administrator or a quality test engineer, you can learn security skills and improve the level that you're performing at. Meanwhile, you're raising the security acumen of your entire organization. You can serve as a mentor or a lead or a security champion for others in your organization. And that is how security starts to build a real critical mass in organizations. And none of those folks are in information security. So when we talk about some of the themes in the book, and the subtitle of the book is Security Careers Beyond Hacking, Because as I mentioned, a lot of people have this concept of, yeah, security is about hacking, and it's not. So it's really important that folks understand how they can improve themselves by learning security, even if their job isn't security specific.
Now, I believe this book is one of a kind. I have not seen anything even close to that book from that angle. Now, my question is to you: why did we wait so long? We started 20 years ago, and nobody has described the jobs, the roles, the interactions in a good way. Maybe we just do the job and we never take the time to think, to step back and to analyze where we're going, what are the problems, what are the things we have to solve as an industry. What is your guess at that question?
Well, I can tell you why it took me so long to write the book, but as an industry, part of the delay, I think, is a lot of us didn't quite understand what it meant to be in cybersecurity for many, many years. And even the NICE framework that I referenced just a couple of minutes ago, it only came out just a few years ago. This is not something that has been around for 20 years. Yet cybersecurity as an industry has been around for 20 plus years. We just never got around to defining very well what it means. And you know this very well. A chief information security officer in general is responsible for a lot of areas of security, but very quickly, when you start to segment those areas of responsibility, it means very different things based on the company you work for, the geographic regions you operate in, the technology stacks that you're using, all of that, the compliance frameworks you need to adhere to. So I don't think it was until the NICE framework that any organization endeavored to define the jobs of cybersecurity, the job categories, and then what those knowledge and skills of cybersecurity jobs entail. Now, the NICE framework is not perfect, it's flawed in many ways. And so, what I wanted to do is I wanted to take two pieces that I found very useful, the NICE framework and this concept of the cybersecurity color wheel, which I first heard about from April Wright's presentation at a Black Hat conference. And I wanted to combine the two because the color wheel is a very useful framework. In cybersecurity, many of us know red teaming and blue teaming, attack and defend. And then you combine the two techniques and you get purple teaming. But the other half of the color wheel, nobody really talks about. Those yellow teams that are building the infrastructure and applications that we depend on. And how do you make them security aware? Well, you take those same red and blue colors and you train them on the attack and defend tactics to make them orange and green. So I wanted to combine that framework with the NICE framework that detailed all of the jobs and give folks a platform so they can understand cybersecurity from the security industry and then from outside of the security industry. Now, the idea rattled around my brain for about 2 to 3 years before I finally started to put pen to paper, so to speak, and actually start writing last summer. But once I started writing, it actually flowed very quickly. And it was just nights and weekends, but it only really took about 2 to 3 months to actually create the manuscript and send it off to the publisher.
Well, thanks very much for giving this service back to the industry at large. Now, you mentioned, we already have 20 years behind us. We're in a quite rapidly evolving world, and which maybe doesn't take the time to analyze what's happening to it. Just keep on moving. Now we know things coming our way. We have AI going into offensive or defensive AI. We have quantum computers or post-quantum quantum encryption or whatever. We have many things coming our way. We have grown in all kinds of directions in the last 20 years. So I think you may have some thought about that, but you can certainly keep updating the book a bit as we grow so fast. Any thought about the future of jobs in the near future? The long-term future is too far away.
Yeah, absolutely. And I think you hit upon an interesting point where I think maybe the second edition of this book, which will need to be written fairly quickly, needs to incorporate a lot of these emerging trends like artificial intelligence and post quantum cryptography. I didn't address those in detail in this book, but they will have a massive impact on cybersecurity careers in the future. So I think maybe this is, our next phase, or our second edition. Now, I did address two powerful forces in cybersecurity in this book, and one of them was software, and the other is diversity and inclusion. Now, software, as you know, it's my background, it's my passion, and you really can't do anything in cybersecurity today without incorporating software. Our mobile phones, our automobiles, our computers, they all run on software, our devices, our gaming systems. So I dedicated an entire chapter to the importance of software with respect to cybersecurity. And I think in the coming years, in the next generation of this book, the second edition, we'll need to dedicate a specific chapter on artificial intelligence, which, by the way, is just software. And we'll also need to consider things like post quantum cryptography.
You mentioned the word diversity, maybe going a little bit into that, and I'm sure it's an education thing or awareness thing. In my experience as a CISO, some of the more talented people in all kinds of aspects of security were actually women. When you look at the industry at large, we're still far away. It took me when I was global CISO of Sony Electronics outside Japan. It took me, I would say, 5 years to make sure that every single department had at least one woman. But so that's one aspect. Today, hopefully, I can see a lot more. But even in the courses I was teaching, I was saying before, there was no women at all. So it's still we're getting there. We're moving. I think I think your book also addresses that point, which is very difficult. And of course, it's not only women, but there are different minorities also, which are depending where you are, more or less presented. At least myself on the global side, I would say I saw security guys from all kind of countries moving in one direction. But if you're in one country, you may not have all minorities which are in that country represented.
That's true.
Any quick thoughts about that? Can education help on that in some ways, or is it cybersecurity who has to make the industry more attractive, or we have to explain? And open the black box in some ways a bit to show what we have to offer. What's your thought?
Yeah, so it's not, this is not a black magic. There's not any, secret sauce or secret science. And education is key, 100%. The force of diversity and inclusion, I think it is a secret weapon because there are many, many women that are interested in cybersecurity. And we'll just take women as one demographic. There are many others. As you know, the vast majority of people who are employed in cybersecurity look like you and I. There's some middle-aged white guys that dominate the field, but our adversaries are diverse. And it is proven from studies, many, many studies, that more diverse teams make better decisions, they run more profitable companies, they can act more nimbly. Simply, diversity of thought gives you ideas you would not have otherwise considered by definition. So if you are a technology leader and you don't have a diversity and inclusion strategy for your team, specifically in cybersecurity, you're already behind and you will continue to fall behind and expose your organization to more cybersecurity attacks and more data breaches. It's just a fact. Now, education is the key, and education of hiring managers about the importance of diversity, but more importantly, exposing security as a field to younger women earlier in their careers, because that's when we see the diversion. A lot of women might be interested in technology or cybersecurity, but the more they learn about it and the more they see white men talking with them all the time, they tend to diverge because they don't see people in the field that look like them and think like them. So they start to diverge. Now, remember the book, it talks about security careers beyond hacking. I know many very, very successful chief information security officers who are women who do not have technical degrees. The chief information security officer of BCD Travel, headquartered in Utrecht, her degree was in Spanish and in languages. And there are many other red team leaders whose background is in psychology because they're trying to understand the mentality of a hacker, not the technology. So that is an important theme for me, is to encourage women and other underrepresented minorities, because that diversity of thought and the importance of diverse backgrounds coming to cybersecurity, like languages and literature and psychology, will help us improve our cybersecurity defenses.
Super. And I think all of us need to take a very activist role on that road. And I think you joined an organization called Cybersecurity, and I think it's great because it's not by observing this and saying, "Oh, it's too bad." I think we have to take an active role in changing that because it's as we mature as an industry, this is a correction we have to apply in a good way. So, but as we come to the end of this interview, I just wanted to know, tell us any interesting fact you learned while writing the book.
Yes, I learned a lot. um, and so one of those things that I learned is that very successful people in cybersecurity, and most of the 150 people that I interviewed did not come from technical backgrounds. I just talked about a CISO that had a degree in Spanish and a red team leader that majored in psychology. But there's also a large number of very successful, well known cybersecurity rock stars whose formal training was in things like literature. And I will name one of them. Her name is Edna Conway. Most recently, she was the Global Chief Information Security Officer for the Azure team at Microsoft, responsible for the security and resilience of the Azure platform. Well, Edna's background is actually the same as my background. She has degrees in literature and mechanical engineering as her bachelor's. And yet here she is ascending to head up one of the global leading cloud platforms with respect to cybersecurity and resilience. And her specialty was supply chain and dependencies. Well, that's a wonderful success story for any woman or girl who's interested in getting into cybersecurity. In my research, I spoke with a lot of people and I talked about the value they found from mentors. And folks like Edna and Sharon Burgess from BCD Travel, they give back their time to mentor others. And mentors were very useful for a lot of the people that I spoke to in cybersecurity. And I still talk to every day because mentors are useful for giving encouragement, for triaging ideas, and sometimes providing motivation by simply giving the mentee a good old fashioned nudge or kick in the butt. And that's what my mentor did for me one time many years ago. And it had a dramatic impact on my current job, but also the entire arc of my career. And I still remember that mentor. I still thank him every time I can. And even though he's long since retired, that one act that he did helped my entire career. It was like dropping a pebble in a pond and watching the ripples grow out. And that's what we, as more experienced cybersecurity professionals, need to consider and give back to those who are a little bit younger and trying to develop in our field.
You have given us some insights in your career and also in your job. How did you find the time to write a book, or what was holding you back before?
Well, the one critical success factor in finding time to write the book is that I have a very, very understanding wife. She not only allowed me to spend the time, personal time, writing the book, but she also contributed in terms of being my soundboard and listening to me and vetting ideas and challenging me and asking me why, or very important questions like, who cares? And this exchange was really important. Again, diversity of thought. But as I mentioned, the concept of the book and the ideas of the book had been percolating in my head for 2 to 3 years. And once I started writing, it actually flowed very, very fast. So yes, I have a full-time job as a cybersecurity CEO, and that takes a lot of my time. And yes, I donate plenty of hours to nonprofit organizations and folks that I mentor. But when I spent nights and weekends actually writing the book and talking with my wife about it, it actually moved pretty quickly because I had so many ideas and so much experience in my head that it was really just a process of organizing my thoughts, getting them in paper, and then doing a little bit of refactoring. So it was nights and weekends, but it was really only about a 2 to 3 month process at the end.
Well, we have to thank your wife, and I love very
Yes,
much the
thank you.
you wrote a very nice preface about your wife at the beginning of the book. So we should thank her for that, for making this possible together. Now we already mentioned before you have to write the version 2.0 for the book at some point. Are there other books coming our way now that you got the hang of it? I should say.
I'm not so sure about that. Maybe. I don't have another book percolating in my head right now, other than the second edition of this book. But I don't have anything specific. I have in the past written chapters for books. I wrote a chapter in a book called The Cyber Elephant in the Boardroom for a man named Matthew Gorge. But I don't have another one already percolating in my head. But we'll see. It's early. It's only March of 2024.
Well, life is interesting. I think one of your staff wrote a science fiction books at some point, so there is more
True.
books to write. I had one of my good colleagues at Sony who was a very senior legal person, left the legal profession to write a romance book in New York City. Maybe once you get into writing, there is a whole world which is opening. But tell me the last most important questions. Where can we find your book? I guess at Amazon, but maybe other places.
Yes, the easiest place to find See Yourself in Cyber Security Careers Beyond Hacking is on Amazon. In the US, you can still find it at places like Barnes and Noble, Target, and Walmart. But outside of the US, Amazon is your best bet.
Super. Thank you so much, Ed. And I wish you all the best for this, book success story, hopefully, and launch. And we were very fortunate to have had you on this video. And I know I'm really tempted to also look into other areas of your activities at security innovation, or maybe at Cyversity, maybe in future videos. Who knows? So again, thank you
Fantastic.
so much for having spent the time on this, and all the best in this adventure.
Well, thank you for having me on your show and giving me the opportunity to talk about it. I very much appreciate it.
Thank you so much.